When I first started this podcast just over 3 years ago, I said I had done enough research and gathered enough topics that I could do this podcast for 4 years with no problem. And that was if I didn't find any other topics to share on the podcast. Needless to say, in the 3 years since, I have found so many other topics that I could easily do another 3 years on top of the 3 that I've done. And new ideas always spring up during my research. One recent set of topics that came to my attention and quickly became a series that I want to do a lot on the podcast is old educational short films. In episode 101, I did the Ounce of Prevention video that was Looney Tunes centric from the early 80s. In episode 114, I did the Snuffy the Talking Fire Engine, Snuffy's Fire Safety Brigade video from the late 1970s. And I've got a whole list of more to review because they're fun slices of life from the time that they were filmed. Most of them have good messages to them, and some are just weird fever dreams. One such film that is all 3 of those descriptions and more is a video entitled Help Woodsy Spread the Word, starring Woodsy Owl from 1977. Kids of the 70s, 80s, into the 90s, you likely know who Woodsy the Owl is. He was one of the mascots of the U.S. Forest Service, kind of like Smokey the Bear, and I think he was even introduced as a friend of Smokey's to kind of give him street cred. This video is just about 16 minutes long and can be found on YouTube at the U.S. National Archives channel. Much like with the Snuffy's Fire Brigade, this is a musical short film. And in fact, there's a man named Mr. Music in it. He's very much a snapshot of the 1970s with his clothes with the big wide bell bottoms. The man known as Mr. Music was Canadian R&B singer Billy Newton Davis. He's 72 years old now, so he was 26 when this came out. His biggest claim to fame was performing a duet with Celine Dion, Can't Live With You, Can't Live Without You, off of his 1989 album, Spellbound. In this video, though, he's playing the Help Woodsy Spread the Word song that you probably know from all of those shorter PSA films, except this version is a longer one. Usually Woodsy would say, in the city or in the woods, help keep America looking good, which they do, but then there's also another verse. They sing, in the snow or on the sand, help keep America looking grand. And the video starts off with beautiful scenery, with Woodsy the Owl walking around looking at the forest and the mountains.
Hello, world. What a beautiful place to be.
And Mr. Music describing who Woodsy Owl is to those of you watching, and even says he's Smokey the Bear has a friend that's always on the prowl, Woodsy the Owl.
Smokey Bear has got a pal who is always on the prowl. Woodsy is his name, you know, he's the anti-pollution owl.
Hi, Woodsy Owl. What's new with you? Do I detect a frown or two?
Hi there, Mr. Music. You know, I've just been enjoying our beautiful forest, and I've been wondering how we can keep it this way.
And after the song and Woodsy takes off and Mr. Music says bye to him, it goes to these random kids that are wishing they could see Woodsy Owl and wondering what he's like. But instead of Woodsy showing up, Mr. Music pops out, and it's definitely a bit on the creepy side as he's very animated in the way he moves, and he speaks in rhyme and tells the kids that he'll go find Woodsy so they can meet him. And the kids immediately make a bad impression by throwing a can on the ground, and that's how Woodsy shows up. "Excuse me, is this yours, young fella?" handing the can off.
Well, what have we here?
Woodsy Owl.
Is this yours, young fella?
Hey, Woodsy, give me 5! Yeah! All right.
In total, I think there's 5 kids, and it looks like one older woman, well, not older, but like in her 20s, that might be a teacher. Maybe that explains why these kids are just wandering through the woods. And then it's time for another Woodsy Owl song, and after singing, Woodsy leads them to these rocks that have been spray painted, and the kids are all upset, and he teaches the kids how to get rid of spray paint off of the rocks. He's got buckets and sponges and soap and sandpaper just with him. An interesting thing here for kids that know Woodsy Owl and grew up with him, during the 70s and 80s, most of the PSAs with Woodsy Owl were voiced by either Sterling Holloway, who did Winnie the Pooh's voice, which if you hear it, it's the same exact voice, or Frank Welker, who's a really famous voice actor. In this short film, it's none of those people, so Woodsy's voice is totally different than you'd ever remember. It's a man named Angelo Rossito, who's an actor. An interesting thing is that he was a little person, and I believe he probably was in the Woodsy Owl costume in this movie, because I noticed Woodsy was a lot smaller than he would be in the normal PSAs, where he was a 7-foot mascot owl. But anyway, the kids sing and they clean the rocks off and everyone's happy. But it's not over yet because there's still more mess to clean. And there's oil in a stream, which I get it for helping to clean the environment. But where they're located, it seems like it would be almost impossible for the oil to get there. And then when they're starting to clean up the stream, they can't really get the oil, but there's bottles in there. Then it's time for the song again, Help Woodsy Spread the Word. And it's really weird and creepy because Woodsy the Owl asks the teacher, who is named Miss Parker, if he can dance with her.
Oh, help Woodsy spread the word. Never be a dirty bird. No matter where you go, you can let some people know to give a hoot, don't pollute. Never be a dirty bird. In the city or in the woods, help keep America looking good.
May I have this dance, Miss Parker?
Why, thank you, Woodsy. I'd love to.
And then Mr. Music grabs one of the kids, one of the girls who's probably 11, and starts dancing in a very exaggerated way. I'm sure at the time then it seemed far more innocent, but you look at it from the lens of 2023 and it's like, God, it's very creepy and definitely very dated to the late 70s. Then after yet another song ends, then they go more into town and they show all the horrible stuff, air pollution, noise pollution, and something called sight pollution, which hearing them say it brought back flashbacks of being a kid and seeing the Woodsy Owl PSAs. I would have thought air pollution would be sight pollution, that things that got in the air would mess with your eyes. So I had to look up what it meant, and sight pollution is the deterioration of natural and human-made landscapes. So basically when buildings start to crumble, that's sight pollution, like it upsets you to see these buildings looking like that. Have any of you ever used the term sight pollution, or is that just a Woodsy Owl thing? And the kids get mad about loud cars and loud motorcycles. And the kids walk around this park and there's a picnic table that's all carved up. And then people have carved their initials into trees, which really upsets Woodsy. So all these kids and their teacher are reformed from the one little boy that threw the can on the ground at the beginning to now being environmental warriors that Woodsy can count on. And then just to make sure that it wasn't weird enough through some of these creepy things, and this random fever dream that was this Woodsy Owl short film, it ends with all the kids and the teacher at this random carousel. And the kids and teacher all get on the horses and Woodsy says goodbye. And there's this extra long scene of the kids all riding the carousel with Mr. Music, and they're all waving to the camera repeatedly.
Just think about what you can do to stop pollution in your own backyards, at school, or, well, just anywhere you go.
Hey, come on, kids. There's a place I know. Let's have some fun before we go.
All right!
And finally, Mr. Music and Woodsy are back in the middle of the woods overlooking the mountains, talking about what they've learned and how you can help keep the forest clean and beautiful and your own area clean and beautiful. And naturally, the Help Woodsy Spread the Word song comes on again. It reminds me of top 40 stations these days with the same song playing 2 or 3 times an hour. But I'll tell you what, if you didn't know the lyrics to the Woodsy Owl theme song, you're going to have them stuck in your head if you watch this video.
In the woods, help keep America looking good.
Looking good. Now you've got it. Thanks, Mr. Music. See you later. I've got to go now, and I'm flying high, but I'll be back, and you know why. Give a hoot. Don't pollute.
And that's how it ends. I tried to do some research to find if Billy Newton Davis did any interviews about what it was like doing this Woodsy Owl film, but there's nothing. I also couldn't find anything about the kids that are in this. They're all very much stereotypical late 70s kids, from the clothes and how they talk. And they look like they're all anywhere between 9 and 13. And even though I laugh a little at reviewing this for you, it was fun to watch and brought back a lot of memories. And I'm glad I could share a little bit of clips from this. And I'll link to it in the description of the podcast, so if you want to watch it yourself, you can. I'm going to do more of these old school educational short films. They may not all be 70s and 80s. I might dip back to the 50s and 60s for some really weird slices of life. But if there are any that you think I should review, definitely shoot me a message. I've got my list and I'm still researching, but you never know what ones I might miss. And remember, help Woodsy spread the word, never be a dirty bird, and give a hoot, don't pollute.